Have you ever pondered about what could have led to the infamous Trojan War, a decade-long conflict that shaped ancient history? The seeds of this epic struggle were sown during a divine contest known as the Judgment of Paris. Paris, the Prince of Troy, found himself in the unenviable position of deciding which of the goddesses Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite was the fairest. Each goddess attempted to sway his decision with tempting offers, but it was Aphrodite's promise that caught Paris's eye. She promised him the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen, who unfortunately was already married to King Menelaus of Sparta. Unable to resist Aphrodite's offer, Paris chose her as the fairest, and was thus granted Helen. However, his actions led to Helen's abduction from Sparta, igniting a spark that would soon engulf the entire region. And thus the stage was set for a war that would echo through the ages. So, what transpired when the Greek forces, seeking to reclaim Helen, descended upon the city of Troy? The Trojan War began with a mighty Greek fleet, led by King Agamemnon, setting sail towards Troy. The Greeks sought to retrieve their queen Helen, who had been whisked away by the Prince of Troy, Paris. As their ships approached the shores of Troy, they were met with a force led by the Trojan prince, Hector, a warrior known for his valor and skill. The initial years of the war were marked by a tense stalemate. Both sides were evenly matched, their forces locked in a brutal struggle day after day. The Greeks, despite their superior numbers, found the fortified city of Troy a formidable opponent. The Trojans, on the other hand, were defending their homeland and had the advantage of familiar terrain. Strategic warfare played a significant role in this drawn-out conflict. The Greeks, under the guidance of the cunning Odysseus, tried numerous strategies to break the stalemate. They would launch attacks at dawn, attempt to scale the walls under the cover of darkness, and even feign retreats to lure the Trojans out. Meanwhile, the Trojans, led by Hector, countered these maneuvers with their own strategies, always keeping the Greeks at bay. Yet, this was not merely a war between mortals. The gods themselves had a stake in this conflict. Some, like Athena and Hera, favored the Greeks, while others, such as Aphrodite and Apollo, sided with the Trojans. They manipulated events, provided aid to their chosen sides, and even directly intervened in battles. This divine meddling further complicated the war, turning it into a chess game played by the gods with mortals as their pawns. The war raged on, with neither side gaining the upper hand, but as we know, the tide of battle is ever-changing. The Greeks and Trojans would soon find that despite their best efforts, the outcome of the war would hinge on a single, cleverly devised stratagem. But that, dear listeners, is a tale for another scene. So, what was the turning point of this long-drawn conflict, you ask? Let's delve into the crux of the matter. One name that often takes center stage in the Trojan War narrative is Achilles, the greatest Greek warrior. His prowess on the battlefield was unmatched, his courage unparalleled. However, Achilles was not just a war machine, he was a man of deep emotions and personal convictions. When Agamemnon, the Greek king, commandeered his war prize, a maiden named Briseis, Achilles fell into a heated dispute with him. This led to Achilles' withdrawal from the war, a move that shook the Greek forces to their core. Now let's introduce another key player in this saga, Patroclus, Achilles' dearest friend. Patroclus, a warrior in his own right, couldn't bear to see the Greeks suffer due to Achilles' absence. So, he donned Achilles' armor and charged into battle, hoping to give the Greeks a morale boost. However, the battlefield is no place for pretense. Hector, the Trojan prince, saw through the ruse and killed Patroclus, thinking he was Achilles. The news of Patroclus' death hit Achilles like a thunderbolt. His heart filled with rage and grief, and he swore to avenge his friend's death. Achilles' return to the battlefield was nothing short of monumental. His fury was like a storm, devastating and unstoppable. He sought out Hector, and in a duel that would go down in history, Achilles killed the Trojan prince. With Hector's death, the Trojans lost a great leader. He was their beacon of hope, their bulwark against the Greek onslaught. His demise sent shockwaves through the city of Troy, leaving them vulnerable and disheartened. But the war was far from over. The Greeks had won a significant battle, but the war was still up for grabs. The question now was, who would seize the opportunity to turn the tide once again? So, how did the mighty city of Troy finally fall? The Greeks, desperate and battle-weary, devised a scheme as cunning as it was daring. They built a massive wooden horse, a symbol of the city's patron deity, and left it outside the gates of Troy as an apparent peace offering. The Trojans, seeing the Greeks' ships sailing away and the horse at their gates, believed their enemies had finally conceded defeat. Ignoring the warnings of their own prophets, They hauled the gigantic horse into their city, unknowingly sealing their fate. Now, imagine the scene. The Trojans, exhausted yet jubilant, celebrating the end of the war, their city filled with laughter, music and wine. As night fell, the city was awash with lights and the sounds of festivities, but as the last of the revelers stumbled into a deep slumber, the belly of the wooden horse opened. Hidden inside were elite Greek warriors, who silently crept out into the sleeping city. They opened the city gates to the rest of the Greek army, which had returned under the cover of darkness. The ensuing battle was swift and brutal. The Trojans, caught off guard and disoriented, were no match for the Greeks. The city was sacked, its treasures looted, and its people enslaved. And thus, the city of Troy fell, ending the decade-long war. But what happened after the fall of Troy? The dust had barely settled when the Greek heroes began their journey home, their heads heavy with victory and loss. Helen, the face that launched 1,000 ships, returned to Sparta, her fate forever intertwined with the war's legacy. And so, the Trojan War, a tale of love, honor, and deceit, has left an indelible mark on history. It serves as a reminder that the lust for power and beauty can lead to devastating consequences.